Hazoor. Jesus is pictured in paintings and statues as being blonde, blue-eyed,
Bit closer to us.
fair skinned. I think he is much darker skinned. What do you think?
Jesus, I don't know. He might have a very fair skin as well, because Palestine is an area where still the complexion is very fair. Now, I'm answering you this question from the point of view of the knowledge, human knowledge, about the people living in that general area. But from the Quran, from the point of view of Hazrat Rasul Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we know definitely, there is no question of conjecturing, that he was of a very fair complexion with reddish glowing hue, that very, that not red in that sense, in the pure red sense of red, but I mean one whose face is flushed with blood and who has rosy pink look. That is the description of Hazrat Muhammad Rasul Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam of Jesus Christ when he saw him in a vision. So there is no doubt about that from a Muslim point of view. But from the worldly point of view, when you discuss this with others, that is why I said you should point out that people living in that general area are still enjoying a fair complexion. And maybe in the past, in the old days, he might have belonged to the people of Israel who hailed from a bit darker complexion. But these things change. When we speak of darker complexion of Moses, for instance, this is how he is depicted nowadays by the media when they show any film on the life of Moses. And they show him to belong to a black race. This is not true. This is not fair to him either. Because he lived in Egypt, so they thought that he should have belonged to that old Egyptian complexion. But he did not belong to the Egyptian race. He belonged to a race which originated somewhere in the Middle East. Of course, nowadays Egypt is referred to as Middle East, but when I said with reference to pharaohs, that was not a part of Middle East at all in those days. And people, the scholars today believe that pharaohs and Moses, etc., living in that Egypt, were of very darkish complexion. But I don't believe that. I think Moses retained the complexion, at least partially, if not entirely, of his parents who had fairish complexion. So the same is true to Jesus. The same is true of Jesus. First of all, his stock was of fair complexion. Secondly, he lived long enough for generations after generations in an area where the complexion was fair. And that is also what happens to those who migrate to England, for instance, from Pakistan. Those who belong to families with darker complexion, when they live here for a few years or long time, they begin to change their complexion. And their children are born fairer. And so the complexions change. This brings to my mind a verse of the Holy Quran which speaks of this phenomenon of difference of language and difference of complexions, etc. The Holy Quran says, we gave you birth from one single soul. And then it was developed, and ultimately Adam and Eve came to be born. And as such, you should always keep in mind the single entity of human race, indivisible single entity of human race. But we gave you different colors and languages, etc., for adding diversification and color and beauty of contrast, etc. I mean, that is not, these are not the words of the Quran, but this is the expression. So that means that according to the Quranic theory, the complexions are not a a permanently demarcating line between people and people. They are influenced and developed by the climates and the geographical conditions in which you live. And if you have lived long enough, then whether you belong to the same stock or not, ultimately you get influenced by that area, geographical area, and the elements of nature playing their part in bringing changes in complexions. So also we know people from West, when they go to the East, live there long enough, there is a visible change in their complexion. When Selvi returned from Rabwa, he was a different Selvi from what he is now. Okay, next please.
Thank you very much, Hazrat.